Hey there, we're going to do something a little different today. I'm going to talk you through a new painting that I've just finished. My name's Tamara Grand. You guys know me from Tamara Grand Art, and this painting behind me is called She Works Outside the Home Too. Now, some of you will know that I am a knitter as well as painter. In fact, I've been a knitter since I was about 7, and that's been my primary form of creativity for many, many years before I ever picked up a paintbrush. About a year ago, a friend of mine who was helping her mom downsize from her family home came across a whole stash of old magazines, and in particular, a few Vogue knitting magazines from the 1950s. And she didn't want to throw them out, so she gave them to me, not thinking that I would actually want to knit the patterns up because those patterns were actually quite dated. But she thought I might be interested in them as a keepsake, which I was. Now, what particularly intrigued me about these magazines were not only the patterns in them, but all of the ads that were targeted to women who were at home practicing their craft, be it knitting or crocheting or quilting, some form of domestic craft. And ads were targeting them to take that craft and make a career out of it. Now, I don't know how many of you guys have ever done anything like knit or crochet or made ceramics or quilted, but the idea of making a career and being able to self-support and support your family from those types of fiber arts was always very laughable to me. So I started tearing this magazine apart thinking, wow, wouldn't it make for some really interesting collage fodder? There were lots of charts with lots of black and white imagery and grids in them. And then if you knit, you'll know that those grids also have dots and dashes and interesting textures in them because those little textures denote different stitch marks that we're going to make. So I started to tear apart some of those charts thinking I might collage with them. But then the advertisements also were very appealing. The words in the advertising, so aimed at the 1950s housewife. And then the pictures, the images of those long, thin, lean women and the outfits they were wearing. There's just something that inspired me. And I thought, let's start a collage piece with the work. So I tore up the magazine. I still have bits of it left. And I started to apply the collage onto this board, the board that you see behind me. I'm going to take you in and show you that a little bit more in detail in a couple of minutes. So I started to lay down the collage layers, as I do on board sometimes, just to create sort of an interesting structure to a piece that I can then go in and apply paint over. Now, initially, you'll see now that this painting is quite bright and vibrant in color. Initially, I decided to go with a palette that was in keeping with the time of the magazine. And I Googled the Pantone colors of that year, and they were all pastels. So washed out yellows and pinks. You can see I left a little bit of that washed out pink here. Mint greens, apricot oranges. So I started to paint this piece using those colors as well. I'm going to flip this around and I'm going to show you the piece in a little more detail, okay? So after I covered the surface with those pastel colors, I realized that that was not what I wanted to do with the work. They were far too washed out. And in fact, those colors were really in keeping with the theme of the magazine, which was that a woman's place was in the home. So what I decided to do was go back in and counter with a lot of saturated bright colors and scratch marks and create something that was a little bit wilder and a little bit more on fire. And I'm going to take you in and show you some of the details of this piece now. You can see the collage bits underneath, the charts that I've scraped and scratched into, little bits of dark outlines of the model. Some beautiful text, British fingering, which is a type of wool. I love this one, start your own career. And as we move up, you'll see there's also some bits of imagery of knitting and the needles and the words from the patterns themselves. So I'm really excited about how this piece turned out. Originally, I didn't think I was going to finish it. You may have noticed I posted probably several months ago about this as a painting I might never finish, but something about last week's workshop in New York City lit a bit of a fire under me, and I came home and I made some final additions to this piece, things that I thought were a little bit braver and bolder moves than were there before, and it's done. And I think it would look stunning on a neutral wall. Look at the edges. I've painted them that orangey red to coordinate with the front. So it's really a bright, vivid piece. When it catches the sun, the yellows just sing. It's 14 inches wide, 18 inches tall, so not a huge painting. And it's on a cradle panel that's about, an inch and a half deep. I finished it with some cold wax, also some cold wax and oil stick on the top. So it's got kind of a matte surface as opposed to a glossier, shiny surface. So there you have it. The story of She Works Outside the Home Too.